one and your life.
Good evening and welcome to the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District Board meeting of September 18th. There is no public, so at this point there will be no public comment for the closed session, and we will close open session to go to closed session. We'll be back at 5:30.
and your life.
Good evening and welcome to the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District Board meeting of September 18th. The board did meet in closed session and has no reportable action. At this point, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, true story. Joaquin is loose, so just do not be alarmed if he comes out. Honorary board member Joaquin. Okay, Superintendent Kramer, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes tonight, President Driller.
Marvelous. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to
Approve the agenda?
approve the agenda as presented. Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And aye. Thank you. At this point, I have not received any public comment for item 7. Is there any public that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move to 8.0, Superintendent's Report. Superintendent Kramer.
Thank you, President Driller. I want to start by expressing our gratitude for our law enforcement partners. Following a vague threat on Truckee High School's student leadership Instagram account, the Truckee Police Department helped assess the situation and enhance security for Friday's football game. And thanks to the on-site presence of Truckee PD, Nevada County Sheriff, and the California Highway Patrol, the game proceeded safely and the Wolverines won 42-6. Next, we'll have an update, and I will share an update about the support systems focus area of our district strategic plan. And a priority in this area is continuing the ongoing development of our employees and our systems. And tonight, President Driller and I will provide an update on our CALM team. And CALM stands for the Collective Action of Labor and Management. And this group has been working together for over a year. And last week, we had a full-day retreat to reestablish our purpose and systems. President Driller, would you like to share a little bit about last week's retreat?
Thank you for this opportunity. The CALM meeting that we're just referencing is something that happened, we started in it 2 years ago, and we as a board and the two labor unions, or negotiating unions, CSEA and TTEA, along with management board, went to a conference in San Diego to learn about how to work with a negotiating team, but in an amiable way, in the sense that we can actually accomplish something that we needed to do. So from that meeting, we went down and learned that every district is struggling the same sort of negotiation issues. It's hard to negotiate. So what we found was that if all of our entities got together, and then we had sort of a mediator helping us, we could actually get what we needed to get done in a positive and constructive way, as opposed to an angry and a non-productive way. So for me, at least, I went to the conference, and then we had this last retreat, but then our committee here, we meet once a month, and we have been able to sort of take just little bits and pieces of what we learned at the Institute to make our team that much stronger and much more productive. And I think that for us, I think we have come a long, long way in terms of where we were in negotiations, before with red shirts and with angry and difficult decisions, but not being working together. I think we've come a long ways. We still have a lot to negotiate, but I think everyone's come with, as opposed to fighting gloves, with gloves that can use fingers to write. So for what it's worth, I think our team has worked really hard together to understand what we need to get done, but I think we've had compassion and understanding and listening. So I think it's been something that we've worked hard at, and I think if you listen to management and to the two teams now, we are in a much more positive way to do negotiations. But I think there's a whole lot of things that have come from each of our meetings that have stemmed down to the rest of our district, so that now we're looking at, as Superintendent Kramer, mentioned, that we're looking at teachers' morale, teacher support. So this whole institute has sort of opened our eyes to making it so that we all are working together. Anyway, that was a long-winded, but I think it's been an awesome thing that we've done, and I think that we will see great results from all of this. I feel like we have.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful group to work with. And one of the goals of the COM team was the wellness and well-being of staff. So out of our work last year as a committee, there was a desire for offering a district-level recognition program. So we brought the idea to the district leadership team. So that's our coordinators, directors, and school administrators. And they came up with a proposal to do recognition of teams. And Cabinet took the idea, refined it a little bit, and now we're going on a road show. So different cabinet members were out at sites today. I was at North Tahoe School. Amber Burke was at Glenshire Elementary in Tahoe Lake. Ed Hilton was over at Donner Trail. And what we're doing is getting feedback on the idea. And we're asking, does the recognition, would it add value if you were recognized as a team? Is the way we're recognizing going to be meaningful? And kind of the tricky parts, like how do we figure out which team to recognize, who makes that final decision? And most importantly, would it make them feel valued? So it's really great to hear all of the ideas and the feedback. So we'll take all of that together and then we'll see what we end up with. So we'll be reporting back and talking to COM about the revisions that we get feedback from all the staff. But it's great. It's a great group to work with, and the retreat last week was very productive, and we learned good new skills. So.
One of the things I just want to add into that too, that when you think of this, what it did, we started with negotiations, but we also then are now looking at how to use this kind of conversation with other entities, but also getting a group of people that we thought we were listening to, but not really listening to. And the fact that when I was talking to Amber last night, that each different group is going to want something different. But what we've done in the past has just been a blanket recognition. But I think this has sort of given us an opportunity to hear different ways and then to be able to react in a way that we can do it, which has been kind of cool. Because again, we have always assumed recognition with a plaque is what you need. And so it's been, I think it's awesome that I hope we can hear what you guys found out.
Yeah.
We're not doing trips, though, right? I know a lot of us ask for trips as our recognition.
There are, of course, limits to what we can do, and just to honor with Trustee Mooney, when we've talked about this, today some of the teachers reflected to me what you have shared, where would be most meaningful is just having the visitor come to the class and leave that message. So I was thinking of you today. But we met with food services yesterday, Mr. Rivera and I, and it was great hearing they would want to be recognized as an entire department. They wouldn't want their individual chefs, like they're very team, whole department focused. So it's great to get all the different perspectives, and we'll see how this evolves. But thank you, President Driller, for helping with the update tonight, and that concludes my update.
Totally fun. That was all. Well, it's also, too, it's always fun to hear that we've done something, we've gone to these meetings, and then we get something that comes back, and we actually can use it. Mm-hmm. So I think that was, I would say money well spent, but it was time well spent. And it's been not just us, but I think that hats off to the TTEA and the CSEA leadership team that took time to go down with us as well, and they're all on board. Like, I think that's a big deal, so it was good. Moving right on to 9.0, business services.
For this item, we'll turn to our Assistant Superintendent Chief Business Officer, Mr. Todd Rivera.
Thank you, Superintendent Kramer, President Driller, members of the board. So tonight we are presenting our 2023-24 unaudited actuals report. And I think I always say this, but this is one of my favorite times of the year because we're finally able to close out the 2023 for year and kind of just focus now on 2024-25. So we're almost there. We still have some other things to do with our final audit, which is going on this week. So all these unaudited actual records, they're reviewing and they're combing through it and determining if there's going to be any findings for the 23-24 year. So it seems to be going well. I'd also like to thank the fiscal services team. It's really a combined effort because it really touches everything from accounts payable to accounts receivable to our payroll department. So everybody's kind of contributing to closing out the 23-24 fiscal year. And specifically, I'd like to thank J.R. Murphy and Angie Morales-White, who have done a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to closing the books. So thank you to them. So just a real quick review of what the process looks like. We're always in essentially 3 different budget years. So we have right now the unaudited actuals report that was due to PCOE by September 16th. We did send that over to them and submit it in time. We're going through our external auditor review right now, and then our next reporting period is actually for the 24-25 year, and that's our first interim report in December. And then around that time, either in December or the January board meeting, we'll be bringing in the final audit from our external auditor, Crow LLC. And then we move back into the 24-25 year with the second interim report, and then we're going to start with 25-26 budget adoption and creation of that. So looking at how we ended the year, and just a reminder, and you probably saw this in the narrative, when we're comparing our unaudited actuals, that's what we actually ended at. We're doing a comparison to what our last budget revision was that was approved by the board, and that was our estimated actuals, and that was presented along with our 24-25 budget adoption. And when we're doing the estimated actuals, we're not only developing our next year's budget, but we're trying to comb through all the accounts and try to project how we think we're going to end the year for all of those things. So sometimes we get it right on. Sometimes we needed to add a little bit more to the budget because we didn't foresee something, and sometimes we needed to pull back a little bit more. So all that, we actually ended pretty close to our our estimated actuals. Our total revenues for the year were $98.1 million. Our total expenditures were $97.8 million. And leaving our unrestricted fund balance at $16.8 million. And that, out of that fund balance, we have some assigned balances that we use for instructional material adoptions, bus replacement, technology replacement, et cetera. And then subtracting that out, we're left with a reserve for economic uncertainty of just about $14.9 million. Now, at estimated actuals, we thought that number would be more like $15.1 million, so we're a little off there. But we're pretty close. But the good news is that overall, if you compare what our reserve was at the end of 22-23 to what it is now at closing, we are still seeing an increase of about $740,000 in our reserve. So kind of looking at some of the detail here, some of the changes from our estimates in June on the revenue side, we did receive a slight increase to our property taxes, about $142,000, and then another $68,000 increase in our RDA residual property tax. So that was very positive. Sometimes some additional revenue will trickle in at the end of the year from the counties when they're distributing property taxes. Our lottery estimates, we saw this last year as well. The state has increased the per pupil amount that they're going to be distributing to school districts this year, which tells us that there was probably really great lottery collections at the state level. So at the end of the year, they've increased that. So it's pretty substantial for us, about $225,000 increase in our lottery monies, which we use for basically instructional materials across the board. One of the things that's a little bit of a concern is our Washoe County tuition, and that is our students that are coming from Washoe County and attending our schools. I would say pretty consistently over the last 5 to 6 years, we've been seeing anywhere from 85 to 95 kids coming from Washoe. That's been roughly around a $700,000 revenue for us. What we're seeing with our final ADA reports is our enrollment from Washoe is reduced to about 69 kids, 67 kids. So when you're looking at the per ADA funding amount, that's about $7,500 per student. So our revenue from the tuition from Washoe County is decreasing, and we did capture a little bit of that in the 24-25 budget, but we just have to keep monitoring that and also kind of dig in and see why that is. On our RDA pass-through, which is funding that we received through the former RDAs, that is specific to facilities improvements. So we did see an increase to that of about $179,000. So that's on the restricted side, so it doesn't really help our unrestricted or our reserve. And then looking at our title programs, we did see a decrease of about $90,000. That's not money that we lost. It's with most of the federal programs that we have, you don't recognize it until you actually spend the money. So when we look at what we originally budgeted for revenue and what we spent, we essentially saw that we still had $89,000 that we didn't spend. That kind of goes into a pot, and we put it in next year's budget in the 24. So we don't lose that money. And then we saw a slight decrease to our forest reserve funding, $27,000. And our interest earnings continue to be very positive. So we saw, even though I upped it at estimated actuals, we still saw an additional $168,000 in interest earnings come. And that's twofold, really. One reason is that, obviously our county pool, the treasurer, is doing very well with their investments, but also our cash balances are a lot higher than they used to be in prior years, too. So there's more money to earn interest. And then this one right here, the GASB 31 fair market value entry. So that's something that we have to do every year. When we're looking at the county pool, the treasury, we have to do a comparison to what the book value is, meaning, what the investments made were, what they thought they would earn compared to what the current market value is. So when the market's doing better than the book value, then you'll see you should recognize an increase in revenue, and when it's doing the opposite, you should recognize a decrease. So with this, this is kind of hard to explain, but it's really, for lack of a better word, a dummy entry. It's not real money that's leaving or coming into the district. Investments have done a little bit better, so compared to what we have booked in prior years, we actually increased our revenue because the fair market value is higher than what it has been in the past. But in reality, that's not real revenue. It's just kind of to recognize that loss or gain in your investments, if that makes sense. And if anyone has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them. Yeah. Or please don't ask me questions on that. So on the expenditure side, our expenditures increased by about $481,000. Some of the reasons for that, increase in salaries of $277,000, and that's both on the certificated and classified side. That's one of those examples where maybe we took a little bit too much away on the budget side when we're projecting for estimated actuals. But really two things contribute to that. One, our sub cost. Historically, they always come in high. It's hard to predict, but the last couple months of the year, we see an increase in sub cost, and we never know how much it's going to be. But we did see an increase in certificated sub cost of about $156,000. The remaining balance of that is on the classified side, and it really was attributed to, we had assumed that there wouldn't be any of the vacant positions hired after a certain point in May, but we did actually hire a couple vacant positions between that and the end of the year. So that added to it, and then in addition, we saw, because of our vacancies, an increase in extra duty and overtime. And then we saw a decrease in our benefits of 156, that's payroll taxes and health and welfare benefits. And then on materials and supplies, we saw a decrease of about 305,000. And one thing I did want to note is in the narrative section, I do kind of go in detail of like the ins and outs, the pluses and minuses of what contributed to that 305,000. I recently discovered that we didn't update that, so it's not accurate. But we will make a change and post it to the board meeting once we make those changes. But reasons for that decrease, we had a lot of unspent donations. And that's typical. We get donations at the school site level. They don't fully spend them. We get a lot of donations in our district, and we carry that forward to the next year. And then decrease in Title I expenditures. Again, that was just that they didn't spend all their dollars, so that's part of that revenue offset that I showed you earlier. And then a decrease in transportation materials and supplies, from what we originally thought we would spend. And then there's always a lot of accounting transfers, things that are moved from one category to another. So that accounts for a lot of this as well, where you have your maintenance department where they have a big budget set up in materials and supplies, and then they need to move it over to cover like a repair, which is a different category. So changes in, moving on with changes in expenditures. So the largest change was our increase in services and operations, and this includes all of our consulting agreements, it includes instructional licenses, it includes our utilities. And you'll see here a pretty big number there with our increase in utilities of about $423,000. And we did increase at estimated actuals because, particularly because on the electrical side, Liberty had announced that they were increasing their rates by 40%. So we tried to capture that at estimated actuals. And a lot, we didn't have final billings at the time, and Liberty is still really struggling with that. We just are now starting to get invoices going back to, in some cases, January or February. So we kind of did a guesstimate there. I think partially we overestimated because some things still don't look right with their current billing. So I expect that maybe that number will go down and we'll get some credits. But we tried to estimate it based on what we had already paid and what was left in the year. And I'm really hoping that's something that we need to monitor and make sure that that 40% rate increase is really applied properly, because something doesn't really quite look right with it. So then on the title programs, again, a decrease of $49,000 in just unspent funds. We did see an uptick in our legal fees, even though we tried to make adjustments in June, and we had a lot going on that required legal services at the time. And then we saw an increase in maintenance repairs. That was just trying to get all the end-of-year maintenance stuff taken care of, $189,000 there. It's all within their isolated budget. And then we saw an increase of about $64,000 in special ed services, and that includes our non-public school placement as well as some of our other services that we outsource for, like physical therapy and mental health services. On the capital outlay side, we saw a decrease in the general fund of $163,000, and that was only because we had in our RDA pass-through budget, we had kind of a shared cost for some of the roofing projects and for our electric vehicle charging station that we were going to cover partially with that funding source, and we ended up being able to cover it in our facility funds. So when you go through the book and you see Fund 21, we were able to put it all in there, so we just moved it out. And then the increase to food service contribution was another big one, $150,000 increase from what we expected. That's really, partially it's the revenue. It didn't come in as high as it did last year with our April, May, and June reimbursements from the state and the federal government. But also food costs is just outrageous, continues to escalate. And we are doing a lot of scratch cooking, so that food is more costly in a lot of respects. So we'll continue to monitor that and try to do things that, maybe lower that a little bit, but it's difficult when you have universal meals and you're serving meals to everybody. You need to purchase the goods and you need to have the staffing for it. Just a snapshot of our general fund revenues from last year's unaudited actuals all the way to the original budget estimated actuals and the final. And then our revenue summary, we're about 72% property taxes, really. That's the primary funding source. We have seen over the years some of those other state revenues and federal revenues take a little bit of a bigger chunk than they used to, but a lot of that is going away now because all that one-time funding is not going to be around. And then looking at the expenditure side, again, we ended up at 97.8 million. You see kind of where we started, 93.2, so we added $5 million or $4 million $4.5 million in expenditures. So some of that's from salary increases, some of that's just from some other things that we added along the way. And looking at our pie diagram of expenditures, I had the number written down. So we're at about 79% people, which is where you want to be. It's actually a little low compared to some districts, but we have a lot of other things that we have pretty high expenditures for operations. And then kind of looking at our fund balances, we're left with just under $11 million on our restricted funds. Our reserve is $14.8 million, which is about a 15.2% reserve percentage. And then, of course, I did talk about the designated or assigned reserves for the different priorities that we have with instructional materials, bus replacement, et cetera. That's about 1.78 million. And then looking forward with our next changes to our current year budget, we did receive an increase in our assessed valuation for property taxes. We budgeted at about 4.92%. It came in at about 6%. So that's going to be an increased revenue that we add to the budget this year of about $817,000. And then we also need to take a look at some of the things that we've added since we adopted the budget. Obviously, in June, we don't know all of our needs. We did experience a need for some additional teachers as well as classified staff. So that'll be added as an expense. And then looking and kind of digging to see if there's any other savings opportunities within their current year budget. Any questions?
Board, any comments or questions for Todd? I have one just comment, is that looking at this budget, and just for anyone who does not know, this board has given direction, I would say, but we support, and again, universal food is there now, but we have done that as a general trend. Like we as a board, I think, and we as a district feel that if you get to school and if you're fed, you're going to learn better. So even though those are some of the expenses that are pretty high, like $150,000 is a lot for food, but I think our board, as well as our district, has set the tone that is an important expense for us, as well as obviously our teachers, and our facility, everything. But that's something that is a sort of a key pin for this district, as to those are things we put as a value. And I know that we will have to negotiate around different ways to keep that operational. But, Ed said today, there are 700 square miles of a district. We have people who need food. So that I think that is something that we recognize that is a lot of money, but it's something that we're supporting. And then the other quick question I had for Washoe, most of those children coming from Incline to Kings Beach, or are they coming to all of our schools? Or is that something that you're going to look into? I think you said you were going to research where and why. Yeah,
I think it really varies throughout the district because we do have students coming from the Reno side, and then we have students come from the Incline side as well, going to places like Kings Beach.
Yep. So that's just, that's good to know. Thank you for that, Chris.
So that was my line of question too, is with the Washoe County enrollment, has that always been word of mouth? And I know also the sibling priority, if they have a sibling already in our district, then there's priority to that, at least for Kings Beach Elementary. is that the only way that families from Washoe County, I mean, unless we have families who work here, obviously, right? But we don't do any advertising or any of that, right? It's always been word of mouth or sibling weigh-in.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And on the other side too, just to mention, we do have some students going, that are TTUSD students that are going to Washoe County schools as well.
And then we pay Washoe County for that?
That's
Yeah.
correct. It's a lot less. It's only about 14 kids or so total.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Danielle.
Oh, I was just, the utility cost caught my attention, but I also look at that as maybe something that, Erica Mertens, in looking through our sustainability options that we have, can maybe use that as a tool too, of if there's other ways for us to balance that out. We've now got a person who can dedicate some time to kind of looking at that, because that's such a moving target for the district of something you can't control, right? We can budget as best we can, but the utilities will continue, as far as I understand, and keep raising rates, especially as they're dealing with climate change and other issues like wildfire. So I feel like, getting a handle around that at some point, if we have other sustainable options would be awesome, but I know that's a difficult one. So it's just a recognition that it's expensive. It's expensive to run this district. But I appreciate all the information in the budget, and I think just as a whole, we're just doing really well. And it just goes to show, the work that your team does to make sure that we have that balanced budget and we can provide food for our students, and that we, are paying for our transportation costs and all the things that keep the district going, and still have a really healthy reserve. I think that's really important.
That's a good thing for Chris, because that would put her over the edge if we didn't have that healthy reserve.
Actually, Todd, can I just ask a quick question too? Speaking of the utilities, I'm not sure, have we researched like solar panels for our district in terms of being able to harvest?
I can say in the past we have. I would say we haven't done any real analysis recently, so I know there's a lot of different opportunities that may be available 8 or 9 years ago. That's another thing that our energy and sustainability manager will be taking a look at, is opportunities for those types of things. We do have some challenges up here on our buildings with just space for panels, but also like where would you put them and how would you deal with snow and things like that. But we're not averse to it by any means, no.
Okay. Well, great, thank you.
Thank you. I like the dialogue here on the diocese. I think, again, these are, Danielle, when you bring up getting our utilities down, that's something that I think we're all working on, and I think that by having a new sustainability manager in there, these are the things those are some more directions that we can, not that we're giving directions, but that we can highlight. We would love to be able to shorten or reduce those expenses, because it's going to be continued, as you said. But I like the fact that we are putting somebody in place to help make that happen. Anything else on that? That is an action item. So would anyone care to make a motion to approve the unaudited actuals?
I will move to approve this year's unaudited actuals report.
Second?
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, thank you, team. Moving to 10.0, Educational Services, Superintendent Kramer.
Yes, and for this item, we'll turn to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Shawn Roderick.
Thank you, Superintendent Kramer, and good evening, President Driller and Board of Trustees. Tonight, we are sharing a review of our 2024 summer programs with you for informational purposes. The 2024 TTUSD summer program was comprehensive and inclusive, catering to students of various grade levels and learning needs. This presentation will illustrate our success of the 2024 summer programs and explore ideas for growth for 2025. Our goal is to provide high-quality summer programs that support student success, foster personal growth, and promote a love of learning. I am pleased to introduce Mrs. Amy King, the Principal of Summer Programs, and share our results with you.
Thank you all for having me back. Yes, again. I apologize for the casual wear. We were out at the Yuba all day. I got to be immersed in our summer school programming this summer, and we have some information and celebrations to share with you all tonight. So we had programming for students from TK through high school. TK Summer Bridge happened at Kings Beach Elementary and Truckee Elementary. Early Learning Opportunity Programs, ELOP, that we included the definition for you, supported by Boys and Girls Club at Kings Beach and Truckee L. Aim High was at Kings Beach Elementary, and credit recovery physically at Truckee High and Kings Beach, but was hybrid with in-person and remote options. So let's start with our youngest learners. The TK Summer Bridge Camp. I have to say I enjoyed my conversations with transportation around the logistics of putting these little ones on the bus. We had 2 successful groups, one at Truckee L and the other at Kings Beach, and all students bridged to TK and K. Doing this camp allowed us to serve our CSPP, which is our California State Preschool Program, for students ages 3 through 5, and our Head Start program. ELOP, again, Expanded Learning Opportunity Programs, are for our elementary age students and was served by our special partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of North Tahoe. We had 375 students at Truckee L and 458 students at Kings Beach, which was outstanding for both sites. Daily attendance averaged 185 students at both sites, so each had about 185. Our ELOP grant provided an outstanding number of meals to our students at Kings Beach, 3,109 breakfasts, and 5,314 lunches. So speaking of feeding our kids, and meals were provided to our TK students as well. Aim High is a program to support our middle school students. Students from both Truckee and Lakeside attended, with the majority of the Truckee students riding the bus, about 75%. Frank Delgado, the director of Aim High, was very pleased with a 95% attendance rate. And exit surveys revealed that parents were overwhelmingly happy with the program. 71 students. And our high school students used the online platform Edgenuity to work on credit recovery in their quest for A through G eligibility. While this is an online program, students were able to get support in person at both Truckee High and Kings Beach. And in addition, all assessments were required to be taken in person with a proctor this year. Our credit recovery program does do 9th through 12th grade, and we had 2 graduates complete their credit recovery for A through G eligibility, which meant they could attend their 4-year schools, which is fantastic. So we had a very successful summer program and are pleased that so many students had access to this support and programs that allowed for successful learning. Next year, we would like to increase our enrollment, specifically in our TK program, to 30 students overall, and would ideally have 90 students in Aim High. We'll be utilizing parent and community nights, such as open houses, to communicate these opportunities to parents so that they, 1, know that they're available, and 2, can incorporate them into their summer plans. Thank you all for supporting this great work. I look forward to being back here in the spring to tell you our plans for next year.
Thank you, Amy King. Does the board have any comments for Mrs. King? You may do that.
Where can I get one of those T-shirts?
Yeah, Donner Trail trackers. Yeah.
Anyone else have any other comments?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you for tracking the data and then presenting it, but I just want to say how proud I am of our district and our spirit of collaboration, and to all the partner agencies and programs that also have that spirit of collaboration, because it's all about the kids, right? And those numbers are great. And I know when AIM High was here, I was like, okay, TTUSD, how do we get 90 plus, people to show up or whatever? But yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Just one more thing. I think the numbers speak for themselves
Yeah.
and how the programs are utilized and what a resource it is for our families to have this available and how that just elevates the success of students, when they have access to this. Because I know a lot of families rely on these programs during the summer for students of, all different abilities and interests. And I think it's just such a great option for families to be able to utilize. So love seeing the numbers, love seeing the targets for next year. And yeah, can't wait to see your presentation again. So
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. Just for public knowledge, Amy, to go into to AIM High and to these TK classes, credit recoveries, if I'm a parent, what is the expense for me?
Zero.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
again, the only reason I was just writing that, the cost, and then you mentioned briefly, I'm not looking at Amber, I'm like, how do we do this? But one of the things that I think is so, so important, and Chris mentioned how everybody's collaborating together, it doesn't cost anything for you as a family member to put your children in these programs.
Right, we have,
So these are the things that I think are such a celebratory comment those are things that people I think that they need to know, is that we believe in educating your child, and we are doing so many different things to try to get you to give us your child so that we can educate them. But I think that that's something that, that I don't know if everyone really realizes that. And obviously, you mentioned getting it into their calendar now. This is something that I think we can keep promoting. Those numbers are huge. That's a huge amount. And it's something that not everyone thinks of summer as an educational thing and whatever. So hats off for getting it as far as we have. But I also think it's a really big, again, I keep talking about showing us off. We do great things. And this is something that doesn't cost you anything. And yet you can get into a 4-year college with credit recovery because we believe in you. We can go to a TK. You can actually graduate out of TK and get ready for kindergarten with the resources that we have in Spanish and in English and in high school, again, so I'm tooting your own horn, but I don't know, it doesn't cost you anything. And then, how do we get more funding so that you get enough funding? I mean, it's funded by us and by other entities.
correct.
Correct. So
We're actually doing some trainings right now with Placer County to find out how we can expand those opportunities for funding for these programs.
Yep.
So, yeah.
awesome.
And I agree, that would be a great addition to this presentation.
There we go. That was awesome. Thank you very much for that. That's so good. And thanks for taking this on. Someone had to do it, so I'm glad it was you.
I'm glad it was me too.
Yay. All right, with that is an info. So thank you for staying late, and now we'll let you mosey on. Thank you for doing 2 in a month.
Yeah.
Pleasure, yeah, absolute pleasure.
All right, thanks, Amy. Back to you, 11.0.
And for this item, we'll turn to our Executive Director of Human Resources, Mr. Mike Shepard.
Thank you, Superintendent Kramer, President Driller, members of the board. We are seeking approval for Resolution Number 6, 2425, the CalSTRS request for separation from service requirement exemption for Michael Depew. When a member retires, they are barred from reentering the workforce for 6 months. And Mr. Depew has signaled interest in returning as a substitute, and we are always in need of substitutes, no matter how much we onboard subs, and certainly having a retired teacher come back and sub is a great benefit to our students. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you have.
Thank you for that. Any questions? This is like a, no-brainer on that one. I do think it's a tough call that when they rule that you can't come back, but I think it's because they want to give the person who retired the actual, you got to retire, just take a break. But we want him back. So if anyone opposes, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 6.
I'll second.
Without a doubt. Anyone, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you for that, Michael. And then moving to 12.0, Superintendent Kramer.
Yes, thank you, President Driller. So this resolution proclaims that our schools will stand with the nation in recognizing September 15th to October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month, with activities appropriate to the occasion and to value the roles and contributions of Hispanics to the local and national economies, culture, and identity. So it's staff recommendation to approve this resolution.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions from the board or comments? Seeing none, this is an action item. Would someone care to make a motion?
I'm happy to move to approve the resolution to honor National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Awesome. Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Moving to 12.2.
And for this item, we will turn back to Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. So tonight we bring to you Resolution Number 8, 2024-2025, adopting the GAN. It is. Resolution, can you hear me? Resolution Number 8, 2024-2025, adopting the GAN limit. Let me swap. So as some background, in 1979 through Proposition 4, essentially limited the growth in government spending for not only the state but also all other public agencies, and they required all public agencies to establish an annual spending limit, which they called the GAN limit, named after the legislator that had proposed it originally. And essentially, what it said is that the spending can't be any faster than the growth in population and inflation. So really, this has kind of become just a formality. It's not really a restriction on spending in any way. Essentially, what we're required to do is recalculate our 2023-24 GAN limit and then estimate our 24-25 spending limit or GAN limit. And how we do that is it's a combination of mostly property taxes and a couple other funding revenue sources that we receive as a school district. And applied to that is inflation factors and also increases or decreases in the ADA statewide for students. That inflates our receipts of our current year revenues and creates a spending limit with those inflation factors. And then for the next year in 2024-25, it's the same thing. We start with that new 23-24 GAN limit and then apply those factors to that number. So essentially, if we ever come to a place where our GAN limit shows that we need to adjust because we've exceeded our GAN limit, then all that we have to do is send a letter and request to the state of California, and essentially our GAN limit will be increased and the state's GAN limit will be decreased. So it's kind of a complicated yet simple thing, but it doesn't restrict our spending in any way.
Thank you for that clarification. It's always good to hear why and what they are, because we forget. Any comments on that from the board? Okay, that is an action item. So would someone care to make a motion for 12.2?
I'll move to approve the GAN limit.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving to 13.0, a favorite, the donations. Superintendent Kramer.
For this item, we will ask our Executive Director of Student Services, Dr. Anna Marie Cohen, to introduce it.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Kramer. Good evening, President Driller, Board of Trustees, and community. The Yo Bro, A Call to Men, is a club at Truckee High School that focuses on community service, graduation, and redefining the man box. The Ian Casey Foundation generously provided a $2,000 donation to support club activities. The donation will be supporting bi-weekly lunch meetings, lunches at lunch meetings, transportation on field trips to trade schools, and a partnership with the Truckee Roundhouse for a manufacturing skills-based service project. It is staff's recommendation the Board of Trustees accepts this grant from the Ian Casey Foundation in the amount of $2,000.
Thank you so much for that, and as always, we thank our donations. I love the fact that they're so creative. Like, that's such a cool thing to do, and there's a lot of fun things that are happening with that. So, any board comments?
Yeah, just real
Yes.
quick, there was a donation made to the same group, I forget how long ago it was, and I was curious, because it sounds like a funny name, the Yobro, a Call to Men Club. But I looked it up, and it's legit. It's a real thing, and they're doing good work. And so I totally support this. And I thank the Ian Casey Foundation for making a donation to help continue operating the Yobros.
Awesome. Is there a second? Did you make that one? Yeah, you did. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 13.2.
For this item, we'll turn to Mrs. Roderick.
Thank you, Superintendent Kramer. The Truckee Optimist Club has generously donated $1,000 for the Glenshire Elementary School softball program. This program is a series of enrichment classes across the school that builds students' love of softball and baseball. The donation will be used to purchase equipment. It is the staff's recommendation that the Board of Trustees accepts this generous donation on behalf of the Truckee Optimist Club.
Thank you very much for that. And are there any comments or questions from the board on that? Thank you, Glenshire Elementary Softball Program, or Truckee Optimist Club for the Truckee Optimist Club of Truckee. There we go. Would someone care to make a motion?
I'll move to accept the donation from the Truckee Optimist Club for the Truckee,
Yeah, no, don't say that.
for the Glenshire Elementary Softball Program.
Thank you.
There we go.
With gratitude, I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving to the consent agenda. Superintendent Kramer, are there any items that need to be pulled from the consent?
Not from staff.
And anything from the board? Absolutely. Would someone care to, I just have one question on the, and I had to look it up again, the personnel, I'm not pulling it, I'm just clarifying a question. We had, I just said that there was some name changes, right? And then, now what was my question? I can't remember what it was. Okay, never mind. It was obviously not too bad. I didn't ask you before, so never mind. I'll sort it out offline. With that, would anyone care to make a motion to approve the consent?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Thank you for that. That brings us to the last item, 16.0, board business. Comments from board. Danielle, what do you got?
It's been very busy since the last board meeting, so I did make it to back-to-school night for Truckee High, and I also attended some volleyball games at Truckee High, and I was there when the football game was going on, although I couldn't attend the whole football game, but I felt like it was very well run with having police on site and all the staff that were kind of in different pockets, so I think it was really successful, and the students seemed to just be enjoying the night, which is what we want.
Thank you. Kirsten?
I don't have anything tonight.
Perfect. Pat?
Yeah, real quick, it is back to school month, and so I attended ACMS and Truckee High School as well. Saw some very interesting things. It was a great, some great presentations by parents. Appreciated the information by teachers, and I appreciated the information that they had to provide. And I'm going to the North Tahoe schools back to school night, which is in a couple weeks. There's this, I think, the last one. So I haven't been over the lake, so I thought I'd go over to that one. And finally, on some sadder news, a previous Glenshire principal, Kathleen Gauthier, her son, Gabe, passed away last month, and he was a Truckee High, or he was a product of Truckee schools and attended and graduated from Truckee High. He'll be greatly missed, I'm sure, by his friends and family. There is a memorial service at 1 o'clock on Saturday at the Community Arts Center downtown for those who wish to attend. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Pat. I did hear that. Chris?
Thank you. I attended the back-to-school night at Kings Beach Elementary, and I made a conscious decision to go into the fifth grade classrooms because, they're still fairly new to be back at fifth grade, to be back at KBE. And also, I did not know the teachers, so I just sat, that's the only classroom I went to. They combined, and I loved, it just reminded me why I love that school so much, just watching the ping pong of the teachers, the teacher that teaches in English and the teacher that teaches in Spanish, and how they work together at different subjects, and who teaches what, and the parents were well represented too, native Spanish speakers and English speakers, and it's just such a great dynamic. That is just such an amazing program in our district. But the energy at the was good. Before we went to the classrooms, it was good. And in the hallways, it was insane, and I loved it. And then had a brief casual conversation with CAT, the Contractors Association of, I want to say Tahoe Truckee, but it could be Truckee Tahoe. I'm sorry, I don't know their actual name, but or order of that. But it was great. They're so interested in collaborating with the district, just to educate not just the students, but the parents, of the opportunities. And one of the kind of conversations that came out of that is, every single morning, if you start your day, you put your feet on a floor that a contractor built. You unplug your cell phone from an electrician's box. You turn on everything we do in our day has to do with the trades. And it seems like there's a turnaround to having that conversation more commonly now with students that are getting ready to graduate, but also reminding the parents that it's such a viable industry. So it was a fun conversation. There were 2 board members there and the executive director, and I'm hopeful that they will, communicate with the district now that that door's been for certain open. I know it's always been open, but I will sign it with my blood. You can call the district. So I'm really hopeful about those conversations. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I was able to go back to school with Amber last night at Tahoe Lake, and totally fun. It was good. They did a different system where they didn't do the auditorium. They just had everyone go to their classrooms, and they split it up into halftime so that one group TK through 3 was at one time, and then 45 minutes later, the older kids went. So the parents were able to do both of their students, teachers' discussions. Saying the hallways were a blast. It was pretty fun. Amber and I just hung out and laughed, but we dressed the same. We were in green, so that we did well. Yeah. But it was really fun, and I thank you for coming, because it was really fun to have people would hear, oh wait, Amber, oh I know I got an email from you, or so it was really, really good, and I think it was fun for everyone to see you. But it was really cool. I did not get to go to any games yet, but I'm kind of excited. There are some games under the lights.
This Friday.
Friday, there is a soccer game, JV, yes.
Lakers against Wolverines.
Yes, could be a tough one.
You need a ticket for that, President Driller.
Listen, I have not gotten my booster's ticket yet, but I will be in Carson City with our mountain bike team, so I will not be able to attend. But true story, I left the mountain bike race at Galena, I stayed in Galena that night, went to the mountain bike race on Sunday, and left at 1:30 to go to Dutch Flat, and at 2 o'clock, the fire started right near the house that I was staying at, and they evacuated, but they didn't lose anything, but unbelievable. That was amazing. Commenting as well onto your, thank goodness for our community, the fire department in Kings Beach, Incline, CAL FIRE, they were on fire. They came to the rescue of our fire in split second. But definitely appreciate all of our community and just, yeah, collaboration. I don't think I did anything else school-wise. Can you believe it? I'm getting ready for ski team.
Wow, okay.
With that, let's adjourn at 6:29.